So Lucas was chosen as Student of the Month for his hard work, growth, and kindness. He has made progress on all goals, is communicating more using words and gestures, and shows increasing independence and patience. Lucas loves school, leads his class proudly, and is always ready to help his friends with a big heart. You want these?
Get your picture.
Say thank you.
Congratulations.
Say thank you.
Say thank
You
you.
tell everybody bye and thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.
Well, that's the best you.
Wait.
Oh, I know. We're ready. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye.
Also, third grade, we have Weston Clark. Weston, here's what your teacher wrote. Weston Clark deserves Student of the Month at DeMott Elementary. Through hard work and perseverance, he tackles every challenge. He demonstrates compassion for his classmates and teachers by helping everyone and by praying for all of us. His unique blend of dedication and kindness make him a true role model. So Weston, who did you bring with you today?
Dad, my sister, my two brothers, my aunt, and my Gigi.
You got a lot of people. That's great. Here you go. Thank you. For fine arts, we have Aubrey Clymer. And then for CTE Human Services, Tessa Baggerly. For French class, Luke Scapel. And for PE Health, APC, Gage Bradburn. For math, Sierra Bradburn. And then for physics, Marvin Johnson. I think we're to the end here.
He's not here yet.
Social studies, Benjamin Almangott. All right. That's all we have. Okay. So if you were here for Student of the Month, you are welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting, but you're also welcome to leave. Thank you.
We have boosted public participation. And we have you have 3 minutes to state what you need to state and no direction to anybody on the board. I know it's only one good one. Tom, Benjamin.
Well, I just wanted to first, I know I have 3 minutes, so I'll make it short and brief for you all, but thank you all. If you didn't know, we were afforded a bus from your school corporation to do extrication on. This is lifelong learning that we need. We don't get much time to do a bus extrication. My fire department and Wheatfield Fire Department got together on Saturday. And We started about 9 AM with safety stand down. We left there about 1:30, sunburnt, and enjoyed a lot of it. Guys came back to the station, had pizzas, but ultimately it was something that we've never been able to do. We've never been able to cut on a bus. The only time we've had 2 bus accidents that we've had to extricate patients out of. This was a very good opportunity to actually learn without having the risk and without having the not really having much knowledge on it. So myself and one of the other fire training officers, Tracy Reynolds, we've done 1 bus extrication, and it was in like 2006, and it was with another training corps class we were in. So I just wanted to say thank you for that donation really meant the world to us, and hopefully we never have to use it. But it engaged a lot of conversation. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'll point out 2 things. You as a school board declared the bus as junk because it doesn't run. It's bad shape. But it was perfect for your training. Rhonda Yates showed us pictures today and we appreciate that. And then the salvage yard paid us for the scrap metal.
Right.
Which was a very good amount of money.
Absolutely. It's a great win for everybody.
So it was. So thank you.
Thank you.
Is that actually harder to cut through than?
So interesting enough, it is not harder to cut through until we get to the roof. We actually found out that our large jaws of life, where everybody understands jaws of life, right? Big clamps, they do not spread or cut. It'll tear the metal. Our cutters don't. Our cutters can cut across the bus. We can make a really good convertible out of a bus. We've done it. But what we found out was Sawzall with the new Sawzall blades actually cut down quicker. And we were able to open up 2 windows wide by just making the Sawzall cut and then utilizing the snips to go across and cutting the main posts out. But a roof, it ate up our K-12 saw. Like me and a new blade for that because we tried opening up right at the window, the vent. We couldn't get that open. So we decided at that point, if we ever have one on its side, it's better to tunnel to take the seats out to actually get into it. So a lot of lessons learned. We actually cut 2 windows. If you look at our pictures, we have one with double window, one I call it a door, and one with 1 door. We use different tools to see what was faster, what was safer, how to get kids out. We did a lot of little things which you can't see in the pictures. We made the bench seats. We took the backs of the bench seats off, put those so that we can put a backboard there. So if we have anybody who is paralyzed, we can literally stage there before we get them out of the bus with that. So a lot of little things were being talked about all the time. We also learned with our tools, there's no way to, we call it a dash roll, where we take the dash and put in a car, we can push it straight out so we can get underneath on the legs. These buses, we couldn't do it. It actually doesn't work for them. So we had to learn modified ways of doing that, getting the windows out. One thing we realized is that unless the new buses are different, the windshield, where we were always taught you can kick the windshield out, if with enough force, we could not. Even with our bunker boots on, we could not with steel shanks on the bottom. We actually have to cut the window out. So a lot of little things that we didn't know or we assumed was actually tried and true or not. And we made a lot more decisions on the fly. Okay, we now know. So a lot of good out of this. So
plus it also gave Rhonda an opportunity to learn what her needs and what our wants and needs are going to be from her. It's the most likely that'll be the first call if any bus accident. So it's nice to know that she can get there, be part of the command center, start scheduling the other buses, start knowing what's coming at us, how many kids are on the bus, emergency contacts and all that other stuff. So it was really good training.
Thank you.
thank you. We appreciate it.
Very nice.
Okay, Mr. King, that's all we have.
Okay, very good. We recommend your approval from the minutes of the March 9th, 2026 board meeting.
Second.
Jeff, Jill, all in favor? 7-0.
You've been presented for corporation claims and payroll in the amount of $4,521,199.31. We ask for your approval.
So moved.
Second.
Katie, Bill, all in favor? 7-0.
Few report items. We'd like to congratulate those students that participated in the Business Professionals of America Leadership Conference, and we have their placements there as well as who participated. Great showing for Kankakee Valley. Also, congratulations to two of our KV track and field athletes who have qualified for the Hoosier State Relays. So Haley Haas finished sixth in the pole vault and set a school record, her own school record. Krista Sietzma finished eighth in the 3,200 meter run, breaking her own school record. Also, congratulations to KV senior athlete Max Duttlinger, who was one of 13 recipients across the state for the IHSAA Gene Cato Memorial Scholarship. And he was recognized yesterday, as well as KV senior student athlete Aubrey Hanger for being recognized as one of two recipients for the Teammate Award for the IHSAA. And that was yesterday down in Indianapolis. So congratulations. And the Indiana Department of Education did grant Kankakee Valley School Corporation a waiver for instructional days for the 2 lost days due to the tornado. And one additional item, congratulations to you as a school board on being recognized by the Indiana School Boards Association for earning the Commendable School Board certificate or pin, which is in the display back in the back for your professional development activities. Also, Bill was recognized that night, as well as Katie was recognized. And many of you have been recognized in the past as well. So it's based upon your tenure as a school board. Many of you have already reached the highest milestone. So congratulations to you all. Under employment items, we have no retirements, but under resignations, we ask that you accept the resignations as listed.
So moved.
Second. Joe, Christie, all in favor? 7-0.
Under leave request, we ask that you accept the leave request as presented.
So move.
Second. Bill, Dan, all in favor? 7-0.
Under extracurricular, we ask that you approve the ECA recommendations.
Second.
Katie, Joe, all in favor? 7-0.
Under classified, we have one recommendation for employment, and we ask that you approve that recommendation.
So move.
Second.
Bill, Jill, all in favor? 7-0.
Under new items, we received a list of several generous donations throughout the corporations to support our students. We ask that you approve those donations.
So move. Second.
Joe, Bill, all in favor? 7-0.
We'd ask for your approval in hiring 3 summer helpers to assist with IT tasks for approximately 10 weeks. This is an item we traditionally do every summer.
So moved.
Second.
Dan, Katie, all in favor? 7-0.
We recommend your approval to replace carpet in the middle school and Wheatfield Elementary as listed.
So moved.
Second.
Bill, Joe, all in favor? 7-0.
We'd recommend your approval to repair the terrazzo at the middle school.
So move. Second.
Bill, Dan, all in favor? 7-0.
Mr. Steiny has been working with our teachers in the buildings, and he has presented a recommendation based upon the building's teachers' responses and recommendations for English and language arts textbooks beginning for the 26 and 27 school years listed.
So move.
Second.
Joe, Katie, all in favor? 7-0.
In F, we recommend your approval to the current honors advanced science course progression at the middle school. In essence, what we're asking you to approve is for integrated chemistry physics to be taught at the middle school level as an academic honors course.
So moved.
Second.
Jill,
Christie.
Christie, all in favor? 7-0.
We recommend your approval for the addition of the life science course at the high school.
So moved.
Second. Bill, Joe. All in favor? 7-0.
We recommend that we reseal 5 storefront frames, and that will be at the high school.
So moved.
Second.
And Bill, all in favor? 7-0.
We recommend temporary summer maintenance help for the summer. This is something we've not asked for before, but it's something that us individuals could help replace lights in our buildings. Train properly, and then they could do the job.
How many we're gonna, they want for that?
2 or more,
Yeah, but somebody's gonna be climbing a ladder, right?
yes,
You're gonna have to have.
some assistance, yes, at least 2,
Yeah.
if not more.
So moved.
Second.
Katie, Christie, all in favor? 7-0.
Under use of school facilities, we recommend you approve the one request for school facilities.
So moved.
Second.
Bill, Katie, all in favor? 7-0.
And under professional leave request, we make a recommendation that you approve those as listed.
So moved.
Second.
Joe, all in favor? 7-0.
Those are all the items we have for a regular school board meeting.
Motion for adjournment.
So
Second. Joe, Christie, all in favor? 7-0.
Well, we'll go ahead and start the work session. There are no documents for public comment, so we'll start with Mike and Chris with finance, and we'll go to Don Puckett.
Just real short, I learned testing in the state has started today. We have a pretty large window. We are not testing, we did not start first day, which is a good thing because Cambium had a glitch where they sent out a panicked email stating that we need to pause on tests in the state. So we were glad that we did not start. I believe most of them are starting next week with testing. The other thing I'd like to thank you for the textbook approval. The teachers and the principals did a great job of really coming together and having input in what we're doing. And it was a tough decision, especially at the K3. They went and we visited some schools, had presentations come here to the corp office with teachers, and so the teachers had a lot of input along with the administrators. But thank you for approving that. That's all I got.
Thank you, Mike. Any questions for Mike? Chris with financial items.
2 items tonight. From Voya, we've received just this afternoon our updated version of our 403B retirement plan. As you approved earlier, we're going to be moving to a single vendor of just Voya. We plan to have the plan for you to approve at the next board meeting And also, as we talked about in previous meetings, our February enrollment numbers were down around 80 students from our October count. So beginning in April, the Department of Education will reduce our state support through June by about $97,000 per month. We did talk about that, but those are the only items I have.
Any questions for Chris? All right. Don Puckett is here from Administrative Assistance. And back in the early fall, I believe you had asked about a feasibility study for us to look at our elementary configuration. So Don has conducted that study and want to present it, and I'll just be quiet and tell about yourself and where we are with this.
As Don mentioned, you guys have contracted with us in the fall. So this has been several months ago that we started collecting information, and like any data in education, we all know how it changes continually. But this is kind of a snapshot or a capture of that moment in time from the fall is where we started out. So, typically the research on reorganizing or reconfiguring schools is very broad, kind of all over the place. Basically what it comes down to is the research doesn't support any one particular configuration for elementaries. The results are what you do should depend on your school district, very specific to you. And so as we look at this, those are the factors that we're trying to consider. Your performances in academics, your curriculum as it's set up, your facilities and building capacities, your staffing, your transportation, all of those things are the things that have the biggest impact on the decision for whether or not you should be your current configuration or reconfiguring to K-5. And so we took a look by meeting with your instructional leaders and decision makers and collecting data, and what we're trying to present to you are the advantages, disadvantages, potential roadblocks based upon what the needs of Kankakee Valley are. The first area we look at was demographics. Probably none of this is new information to anybody sitting in this room, right? But we're pointing some of the pieces out. Your population in your county is aging. Your groups in your demographics below the age of 50 are declining. And of course, that means fewer students because of who your population is made up of. More grandparents than parents, typically. And your enrollment is also decreasing. I think Chris gave us a little snapshot on that, right? We've seen that now for several years, right? And of the students who do live within the boundaries of your school district, 84% are currently attending one of your public schools. So that means there is a fair contingent of students who are getting their education some other way, variety of different ways. If we're looking at the facilities, we start by looking at DeMott. They are a large population. You're the larger population for your primary building, and they are currently, let's just say, packed, stuff to the gills type thing. They use every bit of space available to them, and they're using a lot of spaces for instructional purposes that aren't ideal instructional situations based upon where they have to offer those services. And so they really need either less enrollment or a bit more space. It's very clear that that's true. Wheatfield has fewer primary students enrolled there. And as a result of that, they do have additional space available, right? Not all of their classrooms are needed for general classroom instruction or even supportive instructional services. Now, they're finding lots of uses for those spaces, certainly, but when it comes right down to it, they could house a larger population of students easily. The intermediate school also has a lot of additional space, as many as 11 classrooms that could be housing classes for general instruction at this point. Your newest, nicest facility, I guess we might say on one level, has a lot of advantages there, right? But one of those being additional room right now. So if we were to redistribute the population, by creating 3 buildings that are K-5, that would allow better utilization for that space. It would take kids out of DeMott and move them into the location that is now the intermediate school, or to Wheatfield, and maybe have a more balanced distribution of enrollment, which would be a big advantage in utilizing your spaces effectively. So you have 3 elementary buildings, and you'd be talking about transferring them into 3 elementary buildings. It's just a difference in the grades that are there. And so there aren't a lot of huge structural needs that changes that would have to be made. Certainly the restrooms at the intermediate school would have to be addressed, and there are more than one way you could do that. And then you might also want to make the changes in the intermediate building because you'd be accommodating primary students and not the bigger kids like you currently have now. So one of the biggest pieces, of course, would be your relocating of equipment. Materials that you have in the primary buildings needing to be shared with what would be the new K-5 situation that is now the intermediate. Moving furniture around so you have age appropriate furniture. You'd be essentially servicing the same number of kids. And so you have the materials. It would just be a question of how do we organize it and relocate it, right, so that we can use it more effectively if the kids are redistributed. When we look at staffing, in your school district, you have what many would call a wealth of instructional staff, which is can be a very wonderful thing, certainly, to have. If you average the number of students in self-contained classrooms, it comes out to just over 19 kids per classroom. The state of Indiana, the average is 21. So your class sizes, when taken on the average, right, are smaller. You have a lovely situation, I guess we could say there in that respect. Additionally, your paraprofessional staff is abundant, just hugely abundant compared to many other less fortunate schools, I guess we might say. If we look at it specifically, we have just over 1,300 kids in the elementaries and about 77 paraprofessionals. And so that's exorbitantly more than the ratio to student to paraprofessional ratio for the entire state of Indiana, which certainly can be a wonderful luxury to have and have a value too. But in a time when we know funding is declining and enrollment is declining, that situation becomes very relevant, shall we say. So we have adequate and more than adequate staff for your current instructional and supplemental program. And so if you were to reconfigure, you'd have to make adjustments focusing on where people needed to be based upon the location and the services at the new locations, right? But we certainly also have to consider looking at your staff for optimizing, not just for instruction and academics, but for budgetary resources as well. hard facts, I guess we should say. In curriculum, again, you guys are, you are strong. You are very strong. Your practices are aligned between the buildings. You have your professional learning communities that you take good advantage of. The principals work very hard to coordinate services for kids. You have common assessments, you have curriculum maps, you have power standards, all of those things that impact curriculum, along with the quality of your teacher, of course, are currently in place. Certainly one of the most important pieces that you need. Whether or not that's aligned in the configuration you have now for 3 buildings or a new configuration, you still have those in place. One piece of that certainly is also that realigning to K-5 might give the opportunity to strengthen each of those pieces, particularly the vertical articulation, let's say, of curriculum, when you have K-5 all in the same location. So those all best practices, all strongly developed here in your district. There'd be no reason they'd be negatively impacted by reconfiguring the buildings at all. As we consider curriculum instruction, we look at academic performance. Your 3rd graders at the top grade in your primary buildings, if you look at their I-read scores specifically for the last 5 years, their scores are strong. They score above the state average every year. They're fairly consistent in their scoring. And it's a healthy score in the 90th percentiles. I think when we look at that data, it tells us that your literacy instruction, particularly at grades K through 3, is strong. It's being effective. Now your K through 3 grades are also supported by Title I services, which is an integral part, right, for that performance. Your 4 and 5 grades do not have those services. We move on and look at, let's start with iLearn ELA, okay, over the last 5 years. We can see at each of those years, all 3 grade levels are performing above the state average. Commendable. We can see growth. And if we follow, let's take a 4th grade class, for example, or a 3rd grade class. Let's go back to 2021. In 3rd grade, those kids were scoring between 55 and 59% for passing ELA. Those same kids, or basically the same kids in that grade level, when we look at 2022, would be 4th graders. 56.8%. That's fairly consistent. It's not showing significant growth, right? But it's certainly not showing any kind of drastic decline. Take the same group of kids, they'd be 5th graders in 2023. Now it's 45.8. So we are seeing a drop. And we see that pattern in each of those classes through the years. When you follow the same group of kids from year to year, we're not seeing a drop from 3rd to 4th, which is where the transition is between the buildings. But we are seeing a drop from 4th to 5th in ELA. So just in summary, they score above the state average. We don't see a drop from 3rd to 4th grade, which is what is typical for transition years, according to research, not for us, apparently, but from 4th to 5th grade, we're noticing a decline. We see it in ELA. When we look at math, again, we see it. There's not a decline for 4th grade, but there is for 5th grade. Now, finding out the reason for that is not always real easy, right? But what we're looking at is, does having the transition impact students? Research shows that multiple transitions for kids between buildings can have a negative impact on a variety of things, one of which is academic performance. At KV, that hasn't been true. Now, granted, the research is predominantly about middle school age kids. There has not been a lot of research specific to a third, fourth grade situation. Right? But if we apply it, it talks about multiple transitions. We have 4. If there were 3, that'd be 1 less, certainly. Maybe that has some impact in some way. So when we're considering those, both the ELA and math scores indicate that the transition between 3rd and 4th grade is not being negatively impacted. But, right? Research talks about the other things that are often negatively impacted by having those transitions, having to change buildings. It's not just student achievement, which apparently you guys have done a pretty good job overcoming that hurdle. But it's also social emotional well-being. It's relationships, particularly relationships with teachers. We know when we look at poverty, students in poverty, the number one thing impacting students in poverty and helping them overcome and achieve academically is relationship with the teacher. The research shows that changing buildings can have negative impacts on that behavior of your students. We all know that behaviors are a little difficult to regulate and determine what the cause for behaviors are, because there are a lot of other factors impacting the behavior, not just what we're doing at school, certainly, but it is one of the areas that can definitely be impacted by that, and the continuity of instruction. So in that area, before we switch to transportation, our test scores don't show a significant drop as a result of transition, at least immediately. We have a drop, but there are other factors probably impacting that one, right? But we know that having the transition between 3rd and 4th grade has the potential to negatively impact kids in a lot of other ways. So another area we looked at was transportation, okay? So currently, the amount of time that your students spend on the bus for the morning route and then again in the evening is 40 minutes. So typically it's 80 minutes a day, right? Something here. Yeah. So we have 34 buses that are running routes. 26 of them, according to Rhonda, go to the intermediate school for drop off and transfer, then go out to the elementaries, right? And in the evening, they reverse that process. They come from the elementaries to the intermediate school. That additional time on the bus, the time for the transfer and the time to travel back and forth, right, between the intermediate school and the primary buildings is about 15 minutes each morning and 15 minutes each afternoon. So when we go back to the thought, the average amount of time that the student spends on the bus is 40 minutes in the morning, 40 minutes in the afternoon on average. Okay. Of that, we've got the times that goes for transfers, right, and travel to the elementary. So if you took that time, 15 minutes in the morning, 15 minutes in the afternoon, and you eliminate that, the average amount of time the child will be on the bus will be 50 minutes a day. Over a course of the year, that's 90 hours of saved time. So if your buses are running directly to 3 K-5 buildings, rather than having to do the transfer in and the transfer back out again in the evening, the amount of time you'd save for students on the bus is pretty significant. So if we were to reconfigure the bus routes, right, so that you were going to 3 K-5, you're not only going to save some transportation costs, right? Obviously, it's fewer miles and time, but it's also creating a balanced distribution of students among the buildings. think I must have a heavy finger. Keeps jumping. Yeah, jumped a whole bunch, sorry. So we'll pull all this together. Try to be a little lighter on it. When we look at the information we've been talking about, here's what we come up with. Right? We have a declining enrollment, loss of funds, right? And the number of kids in our school district attending the school has decreased, right, in terms of percentages. And so that would tell us we really are going to have to look at our staff and make sure that we are either reducing staff based upon the number of students enrolled and having the right appropriate ratio, what works best for kids, right? Reducing the staff or possibly reducing staff by attrition. You know, if you're looking at this potential reorganization, you're talking about a pretty lengthy process, right? And so if it's going to take 3 years to go through the process, if you were to decide you were going to do this, if it were to take you 3 years to go through the process and get it organized and planned and in place, you're talking about all of 2029. In that time, there probably will be changes among your staff that looking forward, you can see how you might use those situations to better make the ratio a little more not necessarily advantageous, but so that it fits budgetarily as well as educationally. So that might be one of the pieces we can look at there. It's an opportunity to decrease the number of transitions. Where currently your kids have 4, they could only have 3. You're not probably ever going to get rid of all of them unless you're going to go to a K-12 environment, which you know, I'm not sure there's much of anybody that does that anymore. Now, wait a minute, I shouldn't say that. I do know 2 state of Indiana that do that still, but their numbers are much smaller. And so we could reduce the number of transitions for students and they positively impact the school community. All of those factors that we had mentioned earlier might be in play there. You probably aren't going to have to do significant restructuring of your buildings. They meet code for elementary schools currently, right? But you probably also are going to want to make changes if it fits your financial plan. If to make changes so that it suits, for example, primary students more appropriately. Your principals can tell you there are some special needs for primary kids that moving into a older kids environment, it changes things. So some of that could take place. Right? By law, it doesn't have to take place. But again, that's part of why the process might take us 3 long years to put in place. Reassigning your staff. You have to, as we said before, we needed to make sure we were optimizing it for budgetary resources as well as academic resources. But we have to figure out what are the changes in terms of which staff go where. You have plenty of staff licensed in the appropriate areas, but there's going to have to be some redivision of that. Some of it will be teachers who really want that to have happen, you know, get lucky and that be the entire case. Otherwise, you're going to have a process in place to determine how that's going to work. Again, part of our 3-year-long steps. Your current instructional and supplemental programs have the staffing they need. You guys have the programs in place in order to make sure your curriculum fits, that you're providing the instruction that needs. It's just a question, again, of providing it in different locations or setting up schedules between the 3 buildings for shared staff if it's needed. The bus routes, the biggest advantage of that would be saving time for kids on the buses. In my opinion, there's also a safety factor there. Less time on the bus is safer situation for this, at least from the school's perspective, right? So we not only save transportation costs, time for our staff, but also distribute the kids evenly between the different buildings. Now, as I've mentioned a couple times, should you decide, you know, you want to go that direction, the whole process requires extensive planning and involvement of stakeholders, certainly. Making sure you have good communication and making sure that you collectively and collaboratively plan for the changes. It's not something that happens quickly. It's not something that one person sits up here and says, this is it, this is it, this is it. It's got to be done collaboratively to be effective. For nothing else other than the buy-in, right? We need everyone who's stepping into the role, particularly for academic purposes and instructional purposes and working with those kids, to have some buy-in, some ownership and some buy-in. So looking forward, the district wants to collect information from your stakeholders. And the first step in that would be to distribute a survey. We're supposed to meet next week in our elementary schools, just sharing more of this information again, making it available. If there's community members who want to come in and hear about it, and the staff that maybe wasn't here tonight wants to hear about it. But then the next step, the following week, would be to issue the survey, give the people opportunity to weigh in. And hopefully it also helps them to have an understanding of why you're looking at this and what some of the consequences would be. Once you get to that point, you get all your information collected from your stakeholders, then if the district decides that you want to move forward with it, that's when you start with your planning committees. And that's when the long process begins, the real work. And again, it looks like if the district went with this, you'd be opening your reconfigured buildings like in the fall of 2029. So it's not an easy task, obviously, but it can be very meaningful. It can strengthen your program, can be very effective for your kids, for your communities, your parents. That's a big factor as well. So that is pretty much the synopsis of the feasibility study as we generated it.
Questions? Yours? We'll put your presentation on our website this week. And then you're coming back to all 3 elementaries.
Yes, we are there. Let's see, intermediate school on Tuesday, the 21st, and then Wheatfield Wednesday, 22nd, and DeMont Thursday, 23rd.
You'll present the same information, then we'll send the survey out.
The following week,
You'll send that
after
out.
those are done?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
okay.
then once we get all the survey information, the questions, then you'll provide that to the board.
Yeah. We'll come back with all our findings.
For a decision.
I do have a question for you. We talked a lot about what it would mean for our students. Is there a glaring negative to reconfiguring in your opinion?
A glaring one?
Like something that's just like nothing's jumping out at me as this, you should not do this. Is there something that I'm missing when I have read the study and then heard the presentation?
I don't think that there is a glaring disadvantage to it. I think like anything, there'll be some growing pains. And it's as much for the adults as for the kids, quite honestly. That's typically how it works, right? We have a harder time making the adjustment. But I think overall, what your district leadership and your staff, what they do with this will determine how far reaching the successes go. That makes sense. Because ultimately, the success for every child that comes back to that, to the people.
I do have a quick, is there any kind of study that shows K through 3 kids together
There's
or K through 5?
There's
Compatible?
extensive research that indicates that the importance of continuity of curriculum is most evident in grades K through 3. It doesn't indicate that they needed to be separated in any way or that they need to be joined in any way. But that research points out that that is the most impactful years in the effect of the curriculum, and having consistency and a vertical alignment is doubly important in those years. But it doesn't really address whether or not they needed to be separated in any way. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
So ISBA, October 5th and 6th down at Indianapolis. So as a board, please be thinking about that. And then also the Jasper County Economic Development Organization. This will be brought to our next meeting. They have asked to rent the auxiliary gym for community information and engagement event. So that will be brought to you. So that's going to be on
May 27th.
Thank you. Could you repeat that?
May 27th.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's a planning commission?
The economic development. Be talking about things out at NIPSCO. Okay. Very good. Those are all the items that we have for our work session. So, the board have anything? If not, that will conclude our work session.